Tonight, Roads Minister in a face-off with MPP minority over revelations of alleged secrecy and opacity of a big push policy with claims of over 70 billion cedis in contracts were awarded without open tender.
Our concern, however, lies with the process through which the initial 50 projects have been awarded.
Mr. Speaker, this is a house of record. Let me state unequivocally that all contracts awarded under the program were done in strict adherence to the Public Procurement Act.
We'll park the issues right here on Top Story, brought to you always by Telecel, Connecting Energies, Holy Insecticide Spray and Coil Enjoy, Holy Sleep, and also by Short Pension Trust. Into the future with you. My name is Samuel Kojo Brace. This is also live on Love 99.5 FM in Kumasi. Tonight's Roads Minister in a face-off with minority over revelations of alleged secrecy and opacity of our Big Push program, with claims of over 70 billion cedis in road contract having been awarded without open tender. Now, recent media reports suggest that government has awarded over 70 billion cedis worth of contract under the initiative through sole sourcing. The concerns also featured heavily in the minorities press conference in Parliament early today. Listen to Ranking Member on the Roads and Transportation Committee, Kenneth Gyasi, who accuses government of not disclosing full details of all contracts awarded under the Big Push project.
I'm not opposed to the policy itself. Our concern, however, lies with the process through which the initial 50 projects have been awarded, particularly given that these projects are expected to cost the taxpayers approximately 50 billion, as indicated by the President in his 2026 SONA. In this regard, we strongly believe that government must, as a matter of urgency, should publish the full details of this contract. This should include the identities of the contractors, the specific scope of work assigned to each contractor, and the unit cost per kilometer. This will give Ghanaians the opportunity to independently assess the policy and promote transparency in infrastructure delivery. It is important to recall that these are issues that the current government spoke vehemently about whilst in opposition. There is therefore a legitimate expectation that once in government, higher standards of policy transparency will be upheld. Unfortunately, the current approach appears to mirror the very practice that were previously criticized. This does not bode well for governance and undermine public trust. Transparency remains a cornerstone of good governance. Where processes are open and information is accessible, public confidence is strengthened and unnecessary suspicion is avoided. However, when Ghanaians perceive the decisions have been taken in secrecy and things were done quietly out of public eyes, it inevitably breeds suspicion, and even in situations where no wrongdoing may have occurred, because of the lack of openness, creates room for doubt and speculation.
So that is a member of the minority on the Roads Committee here. Now, just still in Parliament and on this particular one, listen to Roads Minister Governs Kwame Agbodza, who first insists that all contracts have gone through the Public Procurement Authority's guidelines and have been published.
Mr. Speaker, this is a house of record. Let me state unequivocally that all contracts awarded under the program were done in strict adherence to the Public Procurement Act and its accompanying regulations. Mr. Speaker, all contractual information is publicly available and on the Ministry's website. The Big Push roads were identified, or the original Big Push project identified were just 12 major economic corridors across the country, which were christened the 12 disciples. These projects were later broken into 54 lots to foster competition and speed up implementation. Mr. Speaker, additionally, 23 road projects valued at 14.88 billion, which were awarded by the previous administration and abandoned by contractors due to lack of dedicated funding and were absorbed as part of Big Push. These projects were novated to be Big Push under the new funding. Mr. Speaker, globally, it is globally acceptable that sole sourcing even is acceptable if in situations where there is the need to extend the implementation of works which were previously competitively procured to speed up completion. Though the 23 projects I talked about that we innovated, none of them were competitively procured. They were also sourced contracts, but which were innovated at a cost of 14.8 billion Ghana cedi. Mr. Speaker, given the scale, urgency, and national importance of these projects, a mix of procurement methods were employed in accordance with the law.
So that is the Roads Minister, Governor Kwame Agbodza, giving some reasons about what has happened in Parliament. Let's bring in our Parliamentary Affairs correspondent, James Appiah, who has been in the House all day. James, has the Minister been able to disclose how much of the Big Push contract have been awarded through sole sourcing?
Yes, Brave. Although he was not able to tell us how much exactly worth this contract was awarded through sole sourcing, he said 44 different or separate contracts were done through sole sourcing. His reason is that this contract, where these roads were so deteriorated, putting the lives of Ghanaians in danger, and per their assessment, something needed to be done, and that must be done quickly. And that is the reason why they had to adopt sole sourcing to award 44 of these contracts under sole sourcing.
Mr. Speaker, it is important to note that only 44% of all the major contracts included in the Big Push contract were awarded by the ministry under sole sourcing. 44%. So not what has been published by a certain online portal. We have also awarded over 400 different contracts through open competitive bidding, over 400, which is unprecedented because the record shows that from 2017 to 2024, almost all projects that the ministry carried out were sole sourced. Almost all the projects were sole sourced. It will therefore be mischievous for any right-thinking member of society to conclude that the Ministry of Road and Highways only procures work through sole sourcing. Mr. Speaker, I have already mentioned the deplorable state of the road network across the country we inherited from our colleagues. This had brought untold hardship to the motoring public and contributed massively to the food inflation. This led to public agitation and the survival of the state. Mr. Speaker, something needed to be done and done urgently. Mr. Speaker, with dedicated funding already secured under the Big Push program, was both prudent and necessary to proceed swiftly to ensure value for money and avoid cost overruns associated with long procurement and implementation timelines. Mr. Speaker, most of the project would not have started until date if we hadn't adopted a faster route. Mr. Speaker, the following projects, for example, wouldn't have been continued or started. The Kaswa-Winneba and then Kaswa Interchange Road, which is in my good friend, the minority leaders constituency. The dualization of Winneba Cape Coast, the Swami Interchange project, which was stalled, but now has gotten a new life. The Kumasi Outer Ring Road and the Ofankor and Sawam Road are part of this.
So that's still the minister there. James, has he also given a direct response to the publication on this particular matter, that this publication that generated all of this controversy?
Yes, Brett. So it was at this point that he said on record that he was responding particularly to the publication of the fourth state, which indicated that government awarded some over 70 billion Ghana cedis worth of contracts under sole sourcing. He said this is not only false because the state had earlier requested for full details of all of the contracts that have been awarded, and the ministry willingly gave out those information to the media house. And so he believes that this is a deliberate action to mislead the public, insisting that the information that have been put out are not the case.
There is no abuse of the sole sourcing program. Unlike previous, it is an exception and not the norm. Indeed, no procurement law or any other law has been breached, and definitely there is no scandal. Mr. Speaker, I say this as a matter of fact. I am not responding to anybody except those who are falsifying information on social media. Mr. Speaker, the NDC did not award over 70 billion cedis worth of work under the big push. Indeed, we said 54 billion of that was for new works, and then the 23 projects were projects that we inherited, costing another 14.8 billion. And indeed, Mr. Speaker, there's spurious information online that 76% of big push
just go ahead with your
projects
statement.
were sole source is also false. Only about 44% of those projects were procured through sole sourcing. And I state on record, Mr. Speaker, we are making progress as a house and as a country to make sure that much of our procurement is done competitively. But that is why I'm saying that those who claim to have done this so-called analysis based on data we submitted to them freely didn't help the country. Because if they did due diligence, they would have known that those percentages they put outside were pure fabrications and false. And indeed, Mr. Speaker, President Mahama's government has taken steps to improve the procurement process. And as a matter of fact, as I said, I'm not having a go at our colleagues on the other side. I say that today as a minister, almost the 110 billion cedis worth of projects we inherited were all procured through sole sourcing. I don't blame them, Mr. Speaker. I sat on this side of the house not too long ago when the people of Swami were demonstrating against the respected former leader, Honorable Chairman Sabonsu. I supported the fact that we should procure the Swami interchange through sole sourcing because it was urgent and we needed to do it.
This is still top story. Let me bring in Suleiman Brahima. He is the Executive Director for the Media Foundation for West Africa Operators of the Fourth Estate. I'm grateful to you, sir, for joining us here. Now, the minister clearly says there's no breach to the procurement law. I just want us to find out from you what the focus of your work was. Okay, I don't have Suleimana on the line there. Let me bring in Andrew Darich Chiwete. He is Vice Chairperson for the Roads and Transport Committee. I'm grateful to you, sir, for joining us. Now, I hear the explanation being given by the Roads Minister that no law has been breached. But in the past, when it was done, was it a breach of the law?
Thanks for having me. Good evening to your cherished listeners. I'm sure you heard the minister clearly when he said the Swami interchange, when the past government had challenges, he suggested on the floor of Parliament that in order to get the project done quickly, we should have a sole sourcing for the Swami interchange. Was it bad? Was it a good suggestion or a bad suggestion? Was it the NDC government that was in power then? And so the minister was very clear in his presentation, and he has indicated clearly that the projects that were done are all on the ministry's website for people to access.
But in the
just
past,
for clarity. Yes, in the past, I just cited an example.
Yeah,
in the past,
that's why you've cited an example.
In the past, he suggested on the floor of Parliament that the Swami interchange, the way things were going, we needed to work on that interchange. And so, as
but you've mentioned one example out of the many, and the same minister and your party described sole sourcing as the means the MPP government was stealing from the people, because it is a way that road contracts are over bloated. So if in the past it was bad, and you are using one example, to defend it, are you being fair to Ghanaians here? That because he mentioned one example, even though you crucified that in the past, today, because of that example, it is right today? Hello, Mr. Chiwete, are you with me?
Yes, I'm with you.
Yes. So I'm asking you that if you use one example to then equalize the fact that you use sole sourcing when it matters, are you being fair to Ghanaians when you criticize this in the past?
Are you telling me that during the MPP regime, they did only as a sole source project? They did numerous of them. Ghanaians, we all saw it. As members of Parliament, we witnessed.
That's unfortunate there. We've lost Andrew Chiwete. We'll try and raise him back on the line. Now, the minister says it's not true that they've given 76% of the contract through sole sourcing. But was that what, the fourth estate put out there? We'll try and go into all of that. Let me bring in anti-corruption campaigner Adam Stenano into this discussion. I'm grateful to you, sir, for joining. From where you sit, what do you make of the revelation that this quantum of road project were awarded through sole sourcing, something that has been described as not being an act of good governance because politicians abuse that?
Well, thank you. I think that sometimes the politicians tend to get themselves into trouble when they don't make very clear the parameters within which they are speaking or criticizing something. It is desirable that most of our procurement ought to be done as open tender, competitive, procurement processes where everybody can see who was the best bidder for the specific project in question. The issue would be, when we go the route of single source, what are the justifications that then, as it were, make it acceptable for us to have done single source, whether it's in 10% of the contract or 40%? Were these justifiable? Were there situations that we could not avoid that? And I think that's what we need to interrogate.
Okay.
The percentage doesn't matter. Even if it were 10%, when we look at the specifics, was the 10% justifiable, or could we have done that also by a competitive process?
Okay, so let me help with
the quantities, the percentages, and look at the specific case-by-case examples and see whether these had merit.
The response we are being provided with is the fact that roads had deteriorated, putting lives in danger, and had to be awarded immediately and urgently, and that's why the sole sourcing was taken. Is it tenable?
I think that is a slippery slope. I think that was a slippery slope, because once what we had criticized the use of single source, even if there were emergency situations, then there ought to have been a process where everybody agrees that yes, this is an emergency situation, and we all think that this particular entity, based on their competencies and historical whatnot, is deserving of getting this contract. The extent of the criticism, therefore, should have been itself a red flag that one needs to be cautious then saying, oh, there's an emergency, because there will always be emergencies. So I'm not quite sure that was the best way to approach it.
Please do stay with me. Let me bring in Suleiman Abrahima, Executive Director of the Media Foundation for West Africa. So I'm grateful to you, sir, for joining us here. Now, I mean, from what you put out there, the minister says no procurement law has been breached. But what was that a focus? What is the focus of the work that you've been doing?
Well, thank you very much. So, quite clearly, we put out information that points out to a significant abuse of the sole source or single source provision in the procurement law. Now, all this while, we all knew that sole sourcing or single sourcing is a mechanism that is provided for in the law, but with specific conditionalities. And therefore, when contracts are given, what you have to look at is those contracts, were they given, if they were given a single source or for the public, let's say sole sourcing, were those specific conditions within the law met? And I think that in opposition, when the current minister was the ranking member for roads and highways, and all the other people who were in opposition then, who were condemning the use of sole sourcing, I believe they knew that sole sourcing was provided for in the Act, but of course, with certain conditionalities. I don't think that they were at that time saying it because they didn't know. And I don't think that they were saying at the time that, there was no law that allows for sole sourcing. If you take the NDC Manifesto 2020-2024, it is stated clearly that the party, as part of its measures to ensure prudence, would enforce compliance with the PPA Act or Public Procurement Law to prevent the abuse of sole sourcing. Now, if that is what the party is saying, and remember, President Mahama, in his first State of the Nation address last year, his State of the Nation's address this year, and in March last year, just 2 months after being sworn in, whilst addressing the National Economic Dialogue, did emphasize that the problem we have in this country is the abuse of sole sourcing. In other words, the excessive resort to sole sourcing. So if you have a situation where we request for information, and we were very categorical, we need the list of contracts that have been signed under the Big Push initiative from January 2025 to January 2026. The ministry releases the data on contracts that they have signed during the period that we indicated. And our request included, indicate in the information you would give us the procurement method you used, the name of the project, the contractor, the amount, start date, completion date, and award date. The information they gave us contains all that. And in the column that specifies the type of procurement that was used, it's sole sourcing, sole sourcing, sole sourcing, sole sourcing, sole. And I have the data in front of me here.
What reasons were given? What reasons were given? What reasons were given for the sole sourcing?
Well, I mean, it cannot be that you resort to 81 out of 107 contracts under sole sourcing and then say all of them were under emergency, or the condition under which sole sourcing is allowed, which is that sole sourcing is allowed when you are procuring something that we know one particular company has the rights to provide that. So you need Google Maps. You know it is a product of Google. If you put it out there, no other company has the maps. It is only Google that can have it. So you invite Google to provide it for you. It is acceptable. The other thing is that, let's say, Kwame Bridge has collapsed. We cannot say that we are waiting to go through competitive tendering in order to build that bridge whilst the road is cut off. It's an emergency situation.
So what do you expect to happen in this matter?
Sorry?
What do you expect to happen in this matter?
Well, I think that the people who were saying something was wrong then must be principled enough to own up and say we have gotten it wrong. rather than the alibis and the excuses and the justifications that they are providing.
Okay.
Secondly, I think the president has been very consistent on the issue of abuse of sole sourcing. Here is evidence we have provided on a major initiative under which billions are being spent. I do expect that the president will be concerned and, do the appropriate thing. I mean, at least he has the power to investigate. He has the power to look into it better than we do. But this is what we have discovered, and we have presented it to the nation.
Okay. I'm going to you. Suleiman Abrahima, there is Executive Director for Media Foundation for West Africa. Andrew Darich still joins us here, Vice Chairperson, Roads and Transport Committee. Andrew, will you do the honorable thing of saying, well, we had and we'll do better the next time?
What are the breaches? Mr. Suleiman has not been able to tell us that in that act we have breached A, B, and C. But one thing Mr. Suleiman should know is that the minister has been very clear. He published everything. He gave him all the details. And so it tells him that there's nothing to hide. So
is it right that 81 out of 107 contracts are giving out on sole sourcing? You say you have not but
remember that these projects, 23 of them were awarded by the former government. And the projects valued at 14.88 billion. And so if we had not done this, all these projects would have been stalled.
So the remainder of 62 or so were given by your government. Are you justifying it that even though you've not breached the act, these are right?
Justifications have been given by the minister, unless Mr. Suleiman is able to tell us that those justifications are not right and they are untenable.
So when you were criticizing this in the past, what were you thinking really?
Most of the sole sourcing done then, there were no clarity. Unlike our time, publications have been done. Website, we have directed you could go there and access the information. When Mr. Suleiman and Co. demanded for all the details, every detail was provided to him. It wasn't like that during the past government. That is the difference between us and the MP.
Anyway, Ghanaians who are listening will make their decision. But Mr. Senator, before I leave you, from where you stand, what should be done in this particular matter?
I think that further and better particulars on the specific instances, if there are 62 that were giving out under this government, not just saying that the law was not breached, but provide the breakdown and the justifications so that it is clear that it was not just an issue of there's an emergency, but that those who even received it deserve to receive the legal requirements we have in the law. I think it's very important that more detail is provided so that we can arrive at a clear understanding of whether this has been done properly or there are issues to be answered.
I'm grateful. Let me just bring in Suleiman Abraham, who has a point to make. Sule, let's hear your point there.
Yes, so I heard the colleague on talk about the previous contracts awarded by the previous regime. I think it is important to put on record that the 107 contracts we talk about are contracts that were signed by the current minister, Honorable Agbodza. We are not talking about contracts that were signed by the previous one. So the 107A are contracts that were signed by Agbodza, and 81 of them are sole sourcing. So I think it is important that the public is not made confused that we are talking about contracts signed under this government and the previous government. No, we are talking about 107 contracts signed under the current administration by the current minister Agbodza, and 81 of them are sole sourced.
I'm grateful to you, Suleiman Abraham, there. This has been Top Story. Up next is Newsnight.
And coming up tonight, the Ghana Medical Association condemns recent overcrowding incident at the Accident and Emergency Center of the Kolebu Teaching Hospital, questioning the hospital's initial denial of the incident, with the CEO suggesting the video evidence could be AI generated. We speak to the association, which is calling for an urgent overhaul of healthcare system, proposing 8 key reforms.
We also hear from the minority in Parliament's call on government to decongest tertiary hospitals with secondary facilities by completing stalled Agenda 111 projects.
You look at the tertiary centers, their referral point. On the immediate, they have vast lands there. Get a tent, like event center, improvise, get emergency services in the short term. In the medium term, you are supposed to decongest the secondary facilities with Agenda 111.
Also tonight, Energy Minister says he will advise against suspending the 1 cedi fuel levy despite growing calls from the minority to offer relief to consumers struggling with the impact of the Israel-USA-Iran tensions in the Middle East. We have details as the minister insists he does not have the power to suspend the levy.
You look at the tertiary.
Also coming up tonight on Newsnight, Energy Minister says he will advise against suspending the 1 cedi levy despite growing calls from the minority to offer relief to consumers struggling with the impact of the Israel war. Coming up in business.
Competition among the top oil marketing companies could drive prices down further despite rising crude prices on the international market.
Also, President Mahama is sounding the alarm about efforts in the United States to limit the teaching of Black history, saying his resolution aims to preserve historical memory and ensure the injustices of the past aren't forgotten.
Much like the law that was put in place to regulate the punishment of the enslaved in Barbados, these policies are becoming a template for other governments as well as some private institutions.
Details as all is set for President Mahama to table a historic resolution on Wednesday.
Later in the bulletin, a shocking turn of events in the northern region as the lead advocate for an anti-dog meat campaign was attacked by unknown assailants during a sensitization exercise. Details of these and many other stories are coming up in the next 60 minutes. You can be a part of this show by sending us a WhatsApp on 055 11 11 997. My name is Kenneth Gyasi.
My name is Gemma Appiah.
Details shortly.
There are many reasons to connect, and it's all to put smiles on the faces of those you love.
Daddy, thanks for the tea cash, okay? I love you.
That's my daughter Angela. Caring for my parents, that's my duty. I also get to pay my utility bills easily with Telecel Cash. And to the suppliers at my shop,
hello sir, Telecel Cash payment received right on time. Thank you.
I get to make them smile because I can pay to my suppliers' merchant numbers, even on other networks directly. My dear ones, we keep the connection stronger when our family, friends, and business relations are happy. Live on cash, enjoy convenience, and make those who matter smile when you send them money with Telecel Cash.
Telecel, connecting energies.
Couldn't sleep at night. Mosquitoes will be whining my ears, bugging me all night long. Till I got a remedy. Now I'll be spraying them away with holy insecticide spray. I go spray them away with holy insecticide spray. When I sleep, me dana mada with holy insecticide spray.
Holy mosquito coil, holy multi-purpose insecticide spray. Dana kron kron. For bulk purchase, call 0302 681582. This advert is FDA approved.
Son, we are so proud of you for setting up this hospital. I really love those hospital beds and waiting chairs. By the way, did you import them?
No, Dad, I didn't. I actually got them from Kindle Books and Stationery right here in Ghana.
Wow. We also bought our office supplies, safes, executive desks and chairs from Kingdom, and they gave us expert advice on how to set up our office.
Guys, that makes 3 of us. I also got our sofa and bedroom sets, plus our dining hall furniture for our new home from Kingdom.
Wow, Mom, that makes 4 of us. I usually get my stationery items from Kingdom. And my teacher also mentioned that our classroom furniture was provided by Kingdom.
So there you have it. Whenever you're thinking about setting up an office or acquiring furniture for your home, etc., Kingdom Books and Stationery should be your first port of call. With over 40 years experience in the industry, we stock and supply a wide variety of globally sourced office and home furniture, stationery and equipment. Visit our head office,
Takweje, Osu near the Osu Cemetery, Temania Community 4, Takoradi opposite Vijay Mays Plaza, Cape Coast University Bookshop,
Bookshop, Spintex Road near Absa Bank, Atomic Centerpoint Mall, Winneba University Campus, KNUST, the University Bookshop, and Santasi in Kumasi. You can also visit our shop online, www.kingdomstoreonline.com. Hurry while stock lasts. For further inquiries, contact us on 050-162-0810 or 0302-764-101. Email info@kingdomgh.com. Kingdom Books and Stationery Limited, where quality and affordability is assured. Terms and conditions apply.
Good evening. The Ghana Medical Association has condemned the recent overcrowding incident at the Accident and Emergency Center of Kolebu Teaching Hospital, where patients were forced to receive care on chairs and the floor. In a statement, the association is questioning the hospital's initial denial of the incident, with the CEO suggesting the video evidence could be AI generated.
The association says the incident is a symptom of a broader systemic issue, which, with many facilities struggling to cope with surges in patient numbers, they blame recent administrative directives from the hospital and the Ministry of Health for exacerbating the problem. Joining us right now is Dr. Richard Salome. He is the General Secretary of the Ghana Medical Association. Thank you so much for joining us on Newsnight. In your press statement, you talked about how widespread this is. Take us through the numbers. In which hospitals do we see this no-bed syndrome come up strongly?
Well, good evening to you and good evening to your listeners. Indeed, the first step to solving any problem is to honestly admitting the existence of the problem. And that is why for us as an association, we were disappointed that without having verified and confirmed, the management will proceed to make such pronouncements, to the extent that the CEO even made categorical statements saying that the incident did not occur. Indeed, we have verified from our colleagues on the ground, and even on your own news channel, where a patient's relative who was there during that incident confirmed the fact that this was what had happened, and indeed the doctors and nurses had put in their best to manage the situation in the difficult circumstances they found themselves. And so for us, we must start off admitting the fact that this matter is an issue that happens from time to time in most referral centers across the country. It happens due to multiple factors. There are many district hospitals, and even in instances, some places that do not have district hospitals. And so patients are referred to district hospitals or regional hospitals and the teaching hospitals as we know them. In certain circumstances, like when you have a mass casualty incident where you have about, say, 20, 30 people being rushed into an emergency with a capacity of about 20. In such instances where immediate action is necessary, patients sometimes are managed on trolleys from the ambulances that bring them. And in some instances, those that are a bit more stable sat on chairs and managed there. Regrettable as it is, that sometimes is where we can render the immediate care to stabilize the patient, whilst measures are put in place to move them to a more dignified setting like the ward or space is made available at the emergency. So this happens from time to time. I've seen it happening in Komfanoche. Kolebu has had it multiple times. We've discussed it in the media. Many of the regional hospitals, it happens from time to time. So the fact that it happens itself is not unique and peculiar to Kolebu alone. And that is an important point that we have to make. And from there, then we have to approach the root causes of the issue and approach it in a systemical manner so that we'll be able to deal with the issues, the root causes, so that we can minimize these things happening again and again for us to continually come and be discussing them.
In tackling the issues, the deep causes of this no-bed syndrome, what should we be focusing more on? Is it getting more beds at the referral hospitals or resourcing the district hospitals to be able to cater or take care of the patients at that level before they get to these teaching hospitals or referral hospitals?
Like I said, it's a systemic issue and needs a systemic approach. And so there's no one magic bullet that's going to be done that will cure this matter. There is a case to be made for physical beds to be provided to increase the capacity of not just Kolebu, but emergency capacity across the country, especially strengthening the peripheral facilities so that they can be able to, both in human resource, equipment, logistics, teleconsultation capabilities, so that they can manage majority of the emergency conditions and only refer those that are more complex and require more complex interventions to the teaching hospitals and tertiary facilities. That way, we would not need to be referring every type of emergency to the Kolebu. If not, even if we provide 1,000 beds and every hospital is dumping their emergencies in Kolebu, in no time, we'll still be discussing this matter again.
As an association, I'm sure you've had several meetings with the government or with the Ministry of Health. Has this come up in your conversations or engagements with the ministry strongly so that you could push for an end to this? Because you raised some key proposals in your statements. That means you have the solution or you know the solution to the problem.
Well, if you have followed this matter of no-bed syndrome, this is not the first time. Several years ago, about 7 years ago, we released a statement on this same matter when a patient was lost in similar circumstances happened weeks ago. We have spoken about the situation that happened when we even lost our vice president. And so we have discussed this matter times without number. It is the political will and commitment to ensure that the right measures are put in place, and also the necessary financing, the training of the human resource and deployment, the equipment, etc., that we have proposed. The coordinated approach by ensuring a nationwide bed management system where we know at every point where are the emergency beds in the country. For example, if it is Accra, where are the emergency beds within Accra? So that ambulances don't have to be roaming from one hospital, but rather when they move, they know that they are just going to point A because before they moved, they knew. And then also financing to be able to fuel some of these ambulances to prevent the delays. And then expansion of some of the infrastructure where necessary. The issues have been, and that we have listed, are issues we have discussed time without number. And so for us, it is the real commitment that we need at all levels to ensure that this is implemented and to prevent us from discussing these times without number. Often what happens is a very bad incident happens, we come back discussing this, directives are issued without any concrete, comprehensive situational analysis and holistic approach to solving the problem. And then it dies down, we move on to another story, and then we are back to this. But we are all potential emergencies walking around, and we must all be interested to ensure that this matter is resolved once and for all, or at best, minimized.
Dr. Salome, kindly hold the line for us.
Right, Nana Appiah is a ranking member on Health Committee in Parliament. He's also the MP for Ifijase Asokore. Nana Appiah, grateful for your time this evening. Welcome to the program. What is the Kolebu?
Brother, before you go on the interview, there's this habit of Joy FM adding Yao to my name, and that has cascaded to various parts of this country. I am not Yao. It is simply Nana Appiah. There's no Yao in my name.
Right, thank you. What does the Kolebu emergency overcrowding incident say about the current state of Ghana's health system?
I heard the GMA rep talking about we lost a vice president. Do you mean the late president? I don't remember any such emergencies that involved the vice president. So I was confused there. Again, I heard in the submission the strengthening of peripheral facilities. The emphasis here is strengthening peripheral facilities. All right. Now, you want me to talk about this issue. This is an issue that has been an age-old problem. It's been there from Rawlings's time through Kufuor's time to President John Mills, President John Mahama, Kufuor, and again John Mahama. I want to state it clear here. Let us not blame any CEO. Don't let's blame any technical officer in this issue. They have done nothing wrong, and for them, as far as I know, they do their work. Now, the issue here is that we politicize the issue so much so that we only talk about it, and when we have the opportunity, we do a little. Now, if you talk about the immediate centers and the tertiary centers, the same thing. In opposition under John Mills and John Mahama, then PP also we did politics about this issue. We came to meet the no bed syndrome. And what happened? Kolebu, what happened? How many beds did we add to the emergency facilities? Test center. How many beds? But this recurred in 8 years under MPP. Now, if you do a check on Google, the NDC bashed us as insensitive. They forgot of themselves. Almost 1.5 years in office, it's met them again. So this is a gap. The responsibility should be on the policymaker, driven by the politician. So I'll put it squarely at the doorstep of the NDC government. And I am by this telling you that all what you are seeing, you put the gun at the head on the head of the health worker, tells him that you don't have to refer cases when the beds are full at the emergency center. It is okay. I'm driven by compassion and passion to see to the life of the person who has been with me. So I will adapt in the context of now to keep the person there. Whether the person will sit on the floor or will sit in a chair or will lie on the floor, the gun is on their head. Don't ever refer any other person or turn away a patient. So we don't blame them. Failure here is that one. If you talk about on the immediate, what do? We have vast land over there. You put the tents in, like the event center tents. You put the beds in. You can set up an intensive care unit just within like 2-3 weeks. Vendors will bring you equipment. You set it up. So in the short term, you have an annex of an emergency center, taking care of persons rushed to Kompanoche, Kolebu, Port Eho, and also Temale. Because this issue is not peculiar to only Kolebu. Again, it's even not peculiar to secondary facilities at the regional hospitals. Go to regional hospitals today, the centers are full and people are on the floor.
Nana,
so
you are
in the medium to long term,
right?
You look at the Agenda 111 projects. That's why he said strengthening the peripheral facilities. A lot of the peripheral facilities, which are the district hospitals, are post-colonial health posts converted to district hospitals. And now you have a government in line with the universal health coverage, Agenda 2030, to make healthcare affordable, accessible by every Ghanaian, regardless of where you are and who you are and where you live. The taxpayers' money is made available technically or allocated efficiently for us to execute such an agenda. And another regime comes and says that, no, the strengthening of the peripheral centers, we are not going to continue with an MPP agenda.
Are you then saying that the seeming abandonment of the Agenda 111 hospitals have contributed to this?
I gave you the short-term measure. The medium to long-term measure is it cures several mischiefs. A lot of the unemployed. So when you pursue this UHC, Agenda 2030, you are driven to make sure all these hospitals are built within maybe 8 to 9 or 10 years in the life of the country. Okay? And then it will employ a lot of health workers and it will keep people in check in the peripheral centers, reducing referrals. So in one breath, you cannot have a free primary health care touted by the NDC government without strengthening the peripheral center.
Nana, will the minority push for a parliamentary probe into the incident that happened at Kolebu?
It's one too many. It's one too many. It's one too many. Even the speaker, right honorable speaker, even one of the instances said there must be a law so people don't tell. It's one too many. It's one kind that is becoming cosmetic. extremely optical. We just do this one to assuage the feelings of Ghanaians, and nothing happens. Look, if you want a solution to this, we need to be committed as a people with the limited budget at stake to increase the capacity in terms of beds. You can, like I said, hospitals have the tents, give annexes of emergency care, get beds in as annexes. That's the short-term measure. In the long term, get the peripheral centers strengthened by getting the Agenda 111 there. It employs people. Look, all these Agenda 111 centers have emergency care provision. State of the art. They're all in there. Why are you abandoning this course? Why do you think Ghana is only those who live in Accra?
I would want to come in here, Gemma here. You mentioned earlier that you don't blame any CEO or technical officer in this issue. We heard from Dr. Salome, who says that the first step to addressing this phenomenon is admitting that there is a problem. Here's the CEO of Kolebu when this video came up. He said it's possibly AI generated. This is he not admitting that there is a problem in the first place.
Please, of course, we are in a system where AI generates all manner of videos. So anytime you see a video, my position is first is that it's not true. That is my attitude. It could be his attitude as well. So please, let's take the CEO out of this. We are all struggling on these issues. And so these are issues. And it is true. People can AI generate issues and it can be smearing. So my attitude to videos now is first is not true until it's proven otherwise. So probably that would have been his posture. But after, I'm sure he realized it was true. And then he as a CEO is doing his best. He's getting people to attend to the clients. But he doesn't have the resources to put in that immediate infrastructure.
Thank you very much. Dr. Nana Ayu Efriye is the ranking member on the Health Committee of Parliament. He's also MP for Efijase Asokore. And Dr. Richard Salome is the General Secretary of the Ghana Medical Association. Thank you so much, both gentlemen.
Well, Ghana's healthcare system continues to face serious pressure, recording just 0.9 hospital beds per 1,000 people, well below the World Health Organization's recommended 2 to 5 beds per 1,000 population. In the Ashanti regional capital of Kumasi, patients at the Komfo Teaching Hospital are questioning how long patients can endure the no-bed syndrome while key hospital projects in the region remain stalled.
The issue of no-bed syndrome is a very, very devastating experience. When you have a loved one or you yourself, you go to the hospital, imagine all the pain and then the trauma that would take you to the hospital, only for you to get there and then you are told that there's no bed and other things. My younger brother was involved in an accident, and then we got to Komfo. The ambulance conveyed us to Komfo around 3:30 p.m. thereabouts. So it was around 3 a.m., 2:30, 3 a.m. That is when we got to bed. And even at that one, we had to see some people, and then we had to unsolicited agree some pounds and then just to facilitate the process for us. And then I saw a lot of people there who were in severe pain, going through severe pain, but then they also couldn't get a bed. And it's a very, very devastating experience, I mean, honestly.
Responding to the lack of availability of beds at various hospitals, including referral hospitals, board chairman of Kolebu Teaching Hospital and MP for Lambusie, Professor Titus Bayo, admits that the country is currently grappling with beds availability as a result of structural issues. He spoke on the Super Morning Show.
And I don't think anyone is denying the fact that we don't have enough beds, that our staff are overstretched, and this is nationwide. The WHO estimates that hospitals should have at least 2 to 5 beds per 1,000 of the population. Ghana is doing under 0.9 beds per 1,000 population. So structurally, we have a challenge. Functionally, we also have a challenge. I remember very well at the time when the previous government bought these ambulances for the constituencies. I made a comment that our ambulances are going to be driving blind. And people were asking me why. And it is true as of today. They drive blind because an ambulance will pick up a patient and do not have a direct location where they are sending the patient to.
You heard the board chairman of Kolebu Teaching Hospital and MP for Lambusie, Professor Titus Bayo.
Away from health, the energy minister is pushing back against calls for suspension of the 1 cedi fuel levy, even as consumers reel from rising fuel prices linked to the Middle East conflict. Fuel barrels touched $100 just days ago, sending shockwaves to the pumps nationwide. The minority has been calling for the levy to be suspended, but Minister John Jinapor insists that this is not the solution. Speaking at the Government Assurance Committee earlier today, he warned that suspending the levy without an alternative funding source would harm the energy sector.
If we decide that the 1 cedi should be taken off, from my economics background, it means that something must give to pay for that. Either the road sector, the agri sector, or whichever sector. But what I advise against is to take a populist decision which the Ghanaian will pay tomorrow. And we've seen that before. When we give free electricity, as a country, we're all happy. Good decision, good initiative. But we couldn't pay for it. And ECG is here. It sat on their books for so many years. Eventually, it's the same Ghanaian that has to pay for it. So if there's consensus that we should take any tax off, I have no objection to that. But when I go for meetings, particularly at Cabinet, my duty is to tell the government the implication of taking the 1 cedi off. What it simply means that that funding will not be available again. So the Minister of Finance will have to look for some money somewhere. Or you have to increase electricity tariff in order to deal with that. Because why we brought the 1 cedi is that we decided not to pass the cost of fuel as a full reflection in the tariff. And if you talk to PURC, they will confirm that. So if you take that 1 cedi off, then there's an issue. But I know that we are engaged in a lot of discussions with the Minister of Finance and all the stakeholders, and we are monitoring the situation. So if it's gone up and we decide that we want to subsidize or want to take some taxes off, then we have to discuss which area must give so that we can continue to hold the economy. But my advice, and I wouldn't shy away from that, is that let's not take decisions that will hurt the economy tomorrow.
My colleague Michael Ashali sat through the meeting and joins us in studio with details of that sitting. Michael, the minority on the committee did not agree with the energy minister. Why?
Well, the Hassan Tampuli, who is on the minorities and also member of the committee, suggested that just as has happened with other things in the past, that in Akufo-Addo's era, electricity tariffs, for instance, were not paid. The energy sector levy recovery was also suspended at some point. So it is doable, and they thought that the minister and the government should be considering such a suggestion at this crucial moment in time. You can listen to Hassan Tampuli make that suggestion to the Honourable Minister.
Even before prices got to this level, we used to proactively zero the price stabilization and recovery levy, because in essence it's supposed to stabilize prices. So when prices are going up all the time, either we reduce or we completely make it zero in the price build-up. And I remember that the then minority took umbrage anytime that we do that. We were to say it's unlawful, it's unlawful, it's unlawful. But we did it to cushion the harsh effects of increase in the price of petroleum products. 3 variables: price on the international market, taxes, levies, and margins, and then the forex. Forex are stabilized. Price on international market is going through the roof. Why wouldn't you cushion the harsh effects on Ghanaians? Why don't you, like you have done with some other laws, for instance, the Road Transport, the Roads Act, the National Roads Authority Act that has been suspended? You can suspend the application of the Dumzo levy. And if you did that, prices are going to come down by 1 cedi.
So, Michael, we just had a minority member on the committee, Hassan Tampuli. Well, the energy minister revealed that it is almost impossible for him to simply suspend the levy. Why is that the case?
Well, he says that as it stands now, some of the levies have been consolidated and also have been passed by an instrument in Parliament, and that will make it difficult for him to just single out one and just sit somewhere and say that let us suspend that particular levy, and that will have to come back to the House again eventually for them to approve such a suspension. So he says, as it stands now as a minister, he does not have that power to single-handedly suspend the levy only because there's some Ghanaians. Also coming back to the point that he disagrees with suggestions that it should be suspended, because invariably the cost of buying fuels for our generators will still come back to Ghanaians. May possibly have to go back to do so. We should listen to the minister make that a point.
The fuel price hit 23 cedi before.
Yes, for 4 days.
I'm saying fuel price hit 23 cedi before.
4 days.
Fortunately, we are not at the 23 cedi mark. But and it's largely on account of the management of the economy. Because of the way the economy has been managed, like you said, the three factors, the component of the exchange rate has been duly contained. Now, I agree with my brother that government must do something when it gets to a certain level. And like I said, all options are on the table. We are consulting amongst ourselves. And so it's not as if we've indicated that nothing can be done. And Honorable Hassan, if you may recall, this very House, when we assumed office, consolidated all these price stabilization levies into one levy. So the era where the Minister of Energy could unilaterally suspend the price stabilization recovery levy doesn't even pertain. So I don't even have the leverage. And now it's an energy sector levy. But we would monitor the situation, and we would take steps to ensure that the consumer is not overburdened. There's always a threshold. You can't allow the consumer to pay beyond a certain level. And so when it becomes necessary that that decision be taken, I'm sure that that decision will be taken. But once again, my final comment, let us not take a decision which gives us short-term gains, but we'll pay dearly for it going forward. And we've all seen that before. We ought to be very, very careful and be guided in our discourse.
Let's now take you to New York, where President John Mahama is sounding the alarm on efforts in the U.S. to limit the teaching of black history, citing mandates to remove or restrict courses on slavery, segregation, and racism in some schools. He is also highlighting restrictions on publicly funded institutions promoting racial awareness. These developments underscore the importance of his upcoming UN resolution, which seeks to declare the transatlantic slave trade the gravest crime against humanity. We will hear from him shortly, but first, our presidential affairs correspondent Maxwell Agbodza has more on the resolution.
Madam President, the slave trade must be recognized as the greatest crime against humanity. As the African champion on reparations, Ghana intends to introduce a motion in this August body to that effect.
If successful, the resolution would formally recognize the transatlantic slave trade as one of the gravest crimes against humanity. It will encourage global education and remembrance initiatives, strengthen calls for reparations or formal apologies, and lead to further actions through bodies like the United Nations Human Rights Council. The support and opposition to President Mahama's push to get the transatlantic slave trade recognized as the gravest crime against humanity would largely follow historical lines, geopolitical interest, and concerns about reparations. Most African countries are expected to support the resolution because they see it as correcting a historical injustice. It aligns with long-standing African Union positions. Countries like Nigeria, South Africa, and Senegal have consistently pushed similar narratives in global forums. The Caribbean will be among the strongest advocates, especially through regional organizations like CARICOM. Many have active reparations commissions. Countries such as Jamaica, Barbados, and Haiti have been vocal about slavery's legacy. Many of them were also directly affected by it. Brazil is likely to support the resolution because it has the largest Afro-descendant population outside Africa. Countries in Asia and the Middle East may support it as part of anti-colonial solidarity and South-South cooperation. There will also be some opposing countries. Foreign Affairs Minister Samuel Kojo Brace named some of them who have already started opposing the move.
It is unfortunate that our friends in the EU and the US have served notice that they will not be voting for this resolution. But the good news is that we are far more than that. And we want to be on the side of justice, on the right side of history, and we want healing and closure in a way that is dignified.
We can now hear from President John Mahama as he raised concerns about what he says is a growing effort in the United States to limit the teaching of Black history.
Here in the United States, Black history courses are being removed from school curricula. Schools are being mandated to stop teaching students about the truth of slavery, segregation, and racism in American history courses. Books about those topics are being banned in schools and public libraries. Museums, art centers, and other institutions whose budgets rely in any way on public funds are being prohibited from scheduling exhibitions and programs or from displaying materials promoting racial awareness or Black history. Much like the law that was put in place to regulate the punishment of the enslaved in Barbados, these policies are becoming a template for other governments as well as some private institutions. At the very least, they are slowly normalizing the erasure. They are slowly normalizing erasure. Earlier, when discussing the importance of this resolution, I said it was a safeguard against forgetting. This is the type of forgetting that I was referring to. But there are other types of forgetting as well. The great Jamaican philosopher-poet Robert Nesta Marley famously said, "Emancipate yourself from mental slavery. None but ourselves can free our minds."
That's President John Mahama in New York a while ago. He's also added that the resolution would give the global community an opportunity to collectively bear witness to the suffering of millions of Africans impacted by the transatlantic slave trade. He described how an estimated 18 million men, women, and children were taken from their homes over 4 centuries, losing their identities, families, and futures.
Despite what we've been through for centuries, our survival is a testament to that fact. In closing, I would like to offer this quote by Nelson Mandela. And he says, "Our human compassion binds us the one to the other, not in pity or patronizing, but as human beings who have learned how to turn our common suffering into hope for the future. Truth begins with language." Ladies and gentlemen, excellencies, tomorrow we vote on a historic resolution that will be another step in the journey of establishing truth. We stand united as Africans, whether on the continent or any part of the world, and link up with people of conscience around the world to seek truth and justice and restore the dignity and humanity of victims of the slave trade. This is a resolution of destiny.
That's President John Mahama at the UN headquarters in New York a while ago. You can be a part of the show by sending us a WhatsApp on 055 11 11 997. Share your thoughts with us on the stories we've brought to you so far. It's now time for business, and George is here with the latest. And George, I want to ask you if you've personally had an experience of a no-bed syndrome when you've been to the hospital or you've sent a friend or a relative to the hospital, because that's a topical issue today.
I think it's a very, very bad situation. I haven't had the personal experience before, or even a relative close to me, but I don't think that whether that person who has experienced that is a relative or not, it's a very challenging situation. And for a lot of people out there, they don't care about the explanation.
Right.
It's about fixing the situation, because even one life lost is very, very important and it's very, very bad.
That's true. I know you're a rich man, so you can't really relate to some of these things, but at least I had to ask.
Well, coming up in business, competition among the top oil marketing companies could drive prices down further, despite rising crude prices on the international market. And former Minister of Finance said Tekpe fears declining gold prices could present some fresh shocks to the economy. The business news on Newsnight is brought to you by MTN Business. Welcome to the new world of business. Kingdom Books and Stationery, your number one-stop shop for all your office essentials, Sinter's tanks and Pepsodent, Herbal and Charcoal.
Pow, make we step, pow small. Bonya muda sexy.
entered the carnival for town, they start now.
Yeah, Mr. Desi, see my fiber, they fire off. Download, liquor, do streaming, they go on. Gaming, suit, no buffering.
Okay.
It's Bronya way, they more fiber.
Oh, wow, so you really no go come and pa.
MTN unlimited fiber. Internet day here, make a promote.
This Ghana man, put your home on MTN Unlimited Fiber Internet and make the fun day right where you are. Fast speed, pure fiber, truly unlimited. Visit my MTN app or dial *5057# to check fiber availability or to subscribe.
MTN.
When nations rise, it begins with bold conversations. When economies grow, it is driven by partnership. This April, Ghana's business and policy leaders converge at the Kwo Business Forum 2026, the nation's premier platform for investment, enterprise, and economic transformation. With special guest of honor, His Excellency President John Dramani Mahama, joining captains of industry, financial institutions, investors, and entrepreneurs.
The Kwo Business Forum is more than just an event. It is a call to action. And so let us work together to build a Ghana that is competitive, productive, and inclusive, and a Ghana that creates opportunities for all.
Come, let's engage in high-level dialogue, explore industry exhibitions, build powerful networks, and unlock real opportunities from finance and insurance to manufacturing, agribusiness, SMEs, and innovation. This is where it all happens. From the 3rd to the 5th of April 2026 at the Kwo Convention Center in Praeso Hills. Go to www.kwobusinessforum.com and register now. To register for exhibitions, call 059 555 5885 or 059 555 5995. Kwo Business Forum. Connect, promote, grow.
Cast your mind back to 2022. The prices were rising. The stress was high. Every liter of fuel felt like a sacrifice. Do you remember who stepped forward first? When others were comfortable with high prices, Star Oil chose you. We cut our own profits so you could keep your AC on, keep your engines running, and keep your life moving without the heavy burden. We gave you room to breathe when things felt tight. Because of you, our Star Savers, we became #1. Today, the pumps are a battleground. Others are finally cutting prices because they have to. But Star Oil, we do it because we want to. Don't just chase a price, remember a friendship. We were there for you then, and with new innovations coming your way, we are here for you now. Star Oil, still quality and affordable fuels for all.
If you want quality, this be where you belong. Hey, tough, hey, strong. Oh, gonna shout and sing the song. When the sun they hot, syntax no break. When the rain they fall, still no shake. Builders they choose and plumbers they prove. Any project you they start.
The Ghana Exim Bank is 10 years old. Hooray! And to commemorate this milestone, the Ghana Exim Bank is hosting a 2-day international conference on the theme, A Decade of Enabling Export Trade and Industrial Transformation, Resetting Gexim for the Next Frontier. The event takes place on the 25th to 26th of March at the Kempinski Hotel, Gold Coast City, 8 a.m. each day. President of the Republic, His Excellency John Dramani Mahama, will perform the official opening of the conference. Special guest and speaker, Honorable Elizabeth Ofosue-Jari, Minister for Trade, Agribusiness and Industry. Conference host is Honorable Sylvester Adina Mensah, Chief Executive of the Ghana Exim Bank. For inquiries, call 0208-541-480 or visit eximbankghana.com/conference to register. Media partners, Daily Graphic, Media General, The Multimedia Group, City FM, Radio Gold and Channel 1 TV. And knowledge partners include IFC and SME Finance Forum.
Sasso, sasso, mi si come tonton prekon. Sasso, sasso, mi si come tonton prekon. Edrana drama in your busheshe. Yeah, how can see our malaria? Minya me corner, me sasso spray. Every mosquito study run away. Come on, tonton prekon. Sasso, sasso, mi si come tonton prekon. Come on, tonton prekon. Sasso, come tonton prekon. Nani shamne die, demonstronko.
This advert is FDA approved.
You're welcome back to Business on Newsnight. Now, competition among the top oil marketing companies, that is Star Oil and Guel, could drive pump prices down further in the coming days. Now, this is despite the rising prices of crude oil on the international market. There is more in this report.
The two oil marketing firms since last week have reduced the prices at the pumps by more than 3 times. This weekend, the two were engaged in some serious price war, resulting in Guel having the last laugh on Sunday as it dropped the price of petrol to 12 cedis, 24 pesos, and diesel going for 15 cedis, 69 pesos. However, this morning, Star Oil has responded, reducing the price of petrol again to 12 cedis, 23 pesos. This is slightly below the price quote of Guel. There are strong indications that Guel will respond to the action taken by Star Oil. These price movements and reduction is happening at the time that crude oil prices are rising on the international market. A move that should have resulted in these companies increasing prices at the pumps. Some industry persons are of the view that this could also force other players to reduce prices. The price floor for petrol is currently pegged at 11 cedis 57 pesos, while diesel should not be sold below 14 cedis 45 pesos per litre. For some individuals, it is clear that if we allow the forces of demand and supply to really work, maybe prices can be lower than selecting the price floor and stopping the oil marketing companies from engaging in discounted pricing.
And that is a Business Desk report. Now, a former Minister of Finance, Tekpe, is worried that the declining price of gold could present some fresh shocks to the economy. The price of gold has dropped by more than 10% since the beginning of this year, moving from the $5,000 range per ounce to actually $4,400 an ounce. The IMF, for instance, has warned that commodity price volatilities could come with some negative impact for the Ghanaian economy. Mr. Tekpe tells Jobs the development makes a strong case for building some strong buffers.
Yes, I'm concerned, but I am also satisfied that the principle of building buffers when the times are good, both the Bank of Ghana, the Ministry of Finance, the governor and the minister adhere to it. Because building buffers benefited us in dispensing with, the loans that we were, accumulating bullet or we have created problems. So at least I'm happy that, the city is stable as a result of those buffers. And that's another reason why you shouldn't take one of the buffers and, and use it to tackle one crisis, because that's another crisis that's looming, the fall in the gold price. But the good thing is that...
But you admit that is a crisis looming, because there's someone saying that maybe, quote, the fairy tale is over. Now, an expression of the cheap money that was coming in is over.
No, I'm afraid they may come to that conclusion only if they ignore our counter-cyclical policy.
And that is the former Minister of Finance, Tekpe, and economic advisor to the President, John Mahama, that is Seth Tekpe. Economist Professor Peter Kote is pushing for more assistance to the agri sector to aid it in support to the economic growth and improve the country's food security. Now, this is coming after its contribution to the economic growth picked up marginally. But Professor Kote noted that while little support could deliver these results, a lot more can be done for the sector as well as industry to help improve the country's fortunes going forward.
Agri, we know, has its own peculiar challenges. We tend to import more food, and sometimes we crowd out our local production. Our food production is rain-fed. In most cases, we don't use irrigated agriculture. We don't use large-scale commercial farming. I'm not saying we are not doing it, but the scale is very low compared to other African countries within the Southern African region, even Kenya. So we need to do more irrigated agriculture. Then also support the value chain, right from inputs, agricultural inputs, credit. The cost of credit is high. I mean, you and I know how much you pay if you should borrow to finance agriculture, because it tends to be a bit risky, because it is also rain-fed. So cost of credit is high. Same applies to manufacturing. The same problems apply to the manufacturing sector. So we need to provide softer credit to revamp the sector.
Economist Professor Peter Kote. The Chartered Institute of Bankers Ghana is calling for a cautious approach to further cutting the policy rates despite improved economic indicators. Speaking at the Chartered Institute of Bankers Ghana Policy Seminar, Chief Executive Robert Jato said findings from the Institute's pre-monetary policy survey showed the banks expected some room for a reduction in the policy rate. He however warned that any easing must be gradual due to the persistent geopolitical risk to inflation concerns.
Largely, banks expected that the policy rate will come down, but they were quite clear in their minds that that must be done in terms of easing very cautiously, given all the geopolitical tensions that we face and the risk to inflation. Interestingly, there's also the view that the cedi, in terms of outlook, will remain fairly stable, and there's quite some confidence in the macroeconomic environment and also the work of the Monetary Policy Committee. And for us, that's quite exciting.
Robert Jato is the Chief Executive of the Chartered Institute of Bankers Ghana. Let's turn our attention to the stock market. And it was a bad day for investors on the Ghana Stock Exchange as more than 7 listed companies lost some marginal value in terms of their share price. Telecoms giant MTN was down by 3 pesos to close at 6 Ghana cedis, 50 pesos. EcoBank also lost more than 5 pesos and is now worth 50 Ghana cedis, 52 pesos. Well, despite these concerns, if you had invested on the market from the beginning of this year to now, you've made more than 100% return on your investment. Now, this is far better than any other investment instrument currently on the market. And that's all for business on Newsnight. Kenneth, you should look at turning to the stock market.
I should.
A quite good place to make some. I mean, you've made from January to now, you've made about 102% return.
Wow.
On your investment.
I'll try it very soon. Thank you very much, Joy, for bringing us the latest in business. It's now time for sports. And Benaya is here. What do you have for us?
Hamburg SV forward Ransford Yabua Koenigsdorfer has been called up to the Black Stars camp following the withdrawal of Inaki Williams and Brendan Thomas Asante. Now, the two players, Inaki and Thomas Asante, suffered knocks during their recent league matches that was played last weekend. Now, Thomas Asante featured for Coventry City in their 3-0 win over Swansea City in the championship, but was replaced by Josh Eagles in the 62nd minute after picking up a knock. Nainaki also played the entire duration of Atletico Bilbao's win over Real Betis, but was subsequently scanned, which also revealed that he sustained a knock during the match, preventing him from making the trip to Vienna. Now, Koenigsdorfer has already arrived in Vienna and trained with the squad on Tuesday afternoon. The 22-year-old has been instrumental for his club side in the ongoing Bundesliga campaign, having scored 4 goals in 26 appearances. Now, the Black Stars are facing Austria on March 27 before playing Germany 3 days later. And that's it with the Black Stars and sports. But before I leave, I hope you just saw the news of Mohamed Salah leaving Liverpool.
Very sad news. I know you were happy as a Chelsea fan.
I mean, he's been a great servant for the club.
Yeah.
I mean, he's an absolute legend. And what would you rank him in the top 10, among the top 10 players for Liverpool?
For Liverpool,
all-time greats.
He might be in the top 3 for me.
Top 3.
I think he's the best African to have ever played the Premier League.
Okay, I think the numbers don't lie and the achievements also don't lie. Okay, we wish him all the best.
Yeah, we do. I saw news about your team Chelsea, your coach. I saw news about. I said, God, please, it shouldn't be a sacking. And God listened to my prayers. It wasn't a sack.
They said they are backing him and
to the end of the season.
So we are going to continue suffering like
4
this.
losses in a row. Make it 10, okay?
Hey!
Thank you. And tonight, former Chief Executive of the National Petroleum Authority, Mustafa Abdul Hamid, and 7 others have for the 3rd time pleaded not guilty to charges including extortion and money laundering in the ongoing NPA case. This major development unfolded following a fresh charge sheet filed by the Office of the Special Prosecutor after dropping charges against 2 accused persons. Fatal Bayaga has more.
The fourth accused person and director of Care Logistics Albert Ankra and the fifth accused person and director of Kent's Energy Limited Isaac Mensah have agreed to testify for the state. The prosecution, led by a principal state attorney at the OSP, Adelaide Kopri Wood, explained that the legal teams of the two accused persons approached authorized officers of the OSP expressing willingness to testify as the prosecution witnesses. She further told the court that following these major developments, there is the need to file a new charge sheet, reducing the number of accused persons from 10 to 8. Adelaide Wood therefore prayed the court to allow the withdrawal of the charges against the two persons to enable the new case to proceed. The trial judge, Francis Apanga Achibonga, upheld the plea and accordingly struck out the charges against the two accused persons. The first accused person, Dr. Mustafa Abdul Hamid, appeared in court dressed in a white three-piece kaftan and maintained a calm demeanor while observing proceedings from the dock. Meanwhile, the remaining 8 persons have been granted bail of 60 million cedis after pleading not guilty to the fresh charges. For Joy News, Fatal Bayaga, Accra High Court.
That's Fatal Bayaga's report from the Accra High Court earlier today there. And you're still listening to Newsnight on Joy 99.7 FM in Accra and across our various affiliates. These are some of the messages you've been sending to our WhatsApp. Francis says, why is the UGMC and Bank Hospital charging higher than Kolebu? Is it not Ghanaian taxes that were used to build it? To the Ghana Medical Association and Kolebu Doctors Association, they should stop the politics and sit with President Mahama and resolve this matter. And about the high charges by the UGMC hospital compared to Kolebu and the likes, what are they saying about it? Musa Abatoa in Aswasi in the Ashanti region says it's quite disappointing that the ranking member on health, Nana Ufree, sounded more political than professional in his submission. Not every issue should be politicized, especially when it concerns the health and well-being of citizens. After speaking for over 15 minutes, he failed to offer any clear alternative or constructive solution. And this is from Matilda in Keta, who says, where we are now as Ghanaians, there is hope for us that the ruling NDC government will surely build the Ghana we want together, because things are now getting better. Nana from Spintex says MPP is forcing the energy ministers 1 cedi levy on fuel off to equal their e-levy cancellation. There are other taxes to be considered. Those are some of the messages that we've been getting on our WhatsApp platform.
A shocking turn of events in the Northern region as the lead advocates for an anti-dog meat campaign, Eric Jerry Adu, was attacked by unknown assailants during a sensitization exercise. The Institute of Community Sustainability, which Adu leads, has temporarily suspended their nationwide tour to ensure team safety, but vows to continue fighting for animal rights. The campaign, which aims to end the consumption of cats and dogs in Ghana, has gained attention for its efforts to raise awareness about public health risks and animal welfare concerns. Eric Jerry Adu joins us on the line with details. Eric, what exactly happened to you?
Good evening. I want to say good evening to your listeners and your viewers wherever they are. Yes. It's these last 3 days that we embark on our tour to campaign against consumption of dog and cat meat. So we go to the northern region, some place called Rianchi or somewhere very close to Boroga. So we got there, go from our car, and the people say, see, that's him. That's the man. Why do you want to spoil our business? That's what we are doing for a living. You understand? And this is our culture. You cannot come here. And they started looking and say, it's better we have to sit back, we sit in our car and return back to where we are coming from, else they will beat us. We don't have anything to do. They were trying to beat us, and they just say, hey, if we want peace, it's better we enter our car and move, else they will beat us, because we cannot come here to come and spoil their business or destroy whatever they are doing here. That's their meat. And that's their business. And you understand? And from the north, if you are coming from north, you have to eat dog, and the dog that makes them brave. You understand why we don't want them to be brave? Eating dog will make you brave, and especially at the head, and so many things. So my team and my colleagues, we have to quickly ride straight to the car.
Have you reported this incident to the police?
Yes, we have not reported. We are now meeting tomorrow. As I'm talking to, we have a meeting. Then we are preparing to go and lodge a full complaint. So we are talking. We are still make JoJo with our management and executive members.
So you heard Eric Jerry Edu. Thank you so much. He is the leader for the Institute of Community Sustainability, advocating for an anti-dog meat campaign.
That's quite unfortunate. Dogs are man's best friend.
Really?
Yeah, they are. They are
People
not.
eat them.
Well, they do, but
And cats as well. This is not just a dog campaign. Cats
unfortunate.
As well. I have a lot of cats in my house, though.
You do?
If you want, you can let me know.
No, I'm afraid of cats. It's dogs that I love.
I just want to send all of them away.
Right. Thank you very much for listening. My name is Kenneth Gyasi.
My name is Gemma Appiah.
And do not forget to do the 2. That is before you go to bed tonight. Remember to brush with Pepsodent. And right after News 9 is Geek Squad. And Adobia is already in the studio with us. Adobia, what are we talking about tonight?
Tonight we are going to be talking about how we can use technology to more or less gain international attention for our foods, our local foods. It's still Ghana month.
Should be fun.